Welcome to the REALL Academy, brought to you each Saturday at 10:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time by the Leadership Doctors, Dr. Sheka Houston and Dr. Tammy Taylor. REALL stands for Respect, Excellence, Accountability, Literacy, and Leadership. This framework is used to coach leaders and teachers and build student efficacy, while putting systems in place that aligns the work of the school improvement, making the process manageable. The Leadership Doctors' alignment systems are designed to help schools evolve and grow, all while instituting protocols and processes designed to promote collaboration and collegiality. They get into the weeds of work with leaders through their TrustMate Institute that you should contact them about today by filling out the contact form on their website.
Happy Saturday, everyone, and welcome to episode 138 of the REALL Academy, brought to you by Create and Educate and your very own Leadership Doctors, HERS. If you happen to hear some sirens in the background, the Leadership Doctors are coming to you live from Harlem. We're in New York again, presenting at the Transformational Leadership Conference at the Teachers College by OSG, and it has been a phenomenal conference. So if this is your first time tuning in, I am Dr. Sheka Houston.
And I am Dr. Tammy Taylor, and Sheka is correct. We are really having a ball with Off School Grounds. Phenomenal sessions, just a great vibe. So we are ecstatic this morning to greet everyone. I'd like to say good morning to our REALL Academy family. Good morning, Sheka.
Good morning, Tammy. And definitely good morning to the REALL Academy family. We are having to pre-record because at the time that this will air, we will be in session. So you heard, so that's why we won't do our normal roll call, but we will check in under those comments later and engage with you guys. So please let us know that you were here by dropping a comment, and we will respond later on when we get out of our session. So you heard in the promo that REALL stands for Respect, Excellence, Accountability, Literacy, and Leadership. And this encompasses our resilience framework that you see above our heads and over our shoulders. And we didn't pick REALL just because it was a catchy phrase. It is rooted in the improvement correlates developed by Dr. Ron Edmonds. He was a specialist who discounted the 1966 Coleman report that African-American students could not learn at the same rate as their white peers. So his research found some common characteristics among schools that were 90% African-American, 90% poverty, but also 90% performing.
And our framework actually connects that research and puts it into terminology that easily allows leaders to organize every task that they have in their school around those principles. And teachers can organize the principles in their classroom to make sure that the tasks set before students line up with those correlates. The principles that we're referring to are actually called correlates. And it's such a powerful experience because those same principles can help students to organize themselves around the principles so that they can be successful at the work that they do.
Most definitely, Tammy. So ultimately, what you'll have is a school that is speaking the same language around proven principles to success, creating resilience and success at your school. So we have posters for your halls and classrooms, gear for the students to wear with REALL on it that would fit perfectly into your PBIS systems, and making it the ultimate school climate transformation system. So shout out to the schools in South Carolina that are already using it, and we definitely are excited about introducing it to schools here in New York this morning. So that brings us to our topic for today, episode um, 138, Student Voice in the Real Academy. So Tammy's going to get us started with our first acronym, letter in our acronym, which is RESPECT.
Yes, we are going to start the discussion this morning, as always, with the respect aspect of things. And in all honesty, when you're talking about student led conferences, the general idea of a student led conference is respectful, it's empowering, and it gives voice to students about what they are doing at school. That's the most powerful part of that particular discussion. But it's also an opportunity for them to really recognize their own strengths, the things that they are really, really good at, and be able to take bragging rights about some things that they're doing and doing very well. This is also a time for them to identify in front of parents maybe some areas of growth that they would like to have extra support in. And then finally, for respect, that process also creates this whole respectful three-pronged relationship with students and parents and teachers being on the same page about what their child is learning in the classroom. Because again, when you are having these conversations, you share this child in common. So it's a very empowering thing, not just for the parent. Like I'm proud. I can remember in my classroom, I only interjected if I was needed to facilitate a part of the discussion because something got left out that really needed to be discussed. I started the conference and turned it over to the student, and they were able to carry on, and you would be surprised. However, I do want to caution people as we were talking about the respect factor. Also, this makes me think about how it could be perceived as disrespectful if this is something that you just thrust on people. So this is a learned skills. You have to really help teachers to be able to facilitate a student-led conference. And that comes through maybe you modeling or allowing teachers who may be uncomfortable with it to conduct a conference with you present as the parent so that they get used to doing a student-led conference.
Most definitely, Tammy. When we divided the grade levels at the middle school when I was the principal there, we spoke to every student in the school, and we were intentional about making sure we reached every student. And you're right, it can't just be that, oh, today we're having student-led conferences. It was months of preparation. It was, they were presenting data that they were tracking for themselves. And so they had notebooks to go along with that as well. So the premise behind it is that the students are now taking ownership of their data, and what they have taken ownership of, now they are now presenting that to their parents. And sometimes, a parent may not be able to make it if you're having this on your campus. So we even did the flip conference where students could record their conference with their parents and turn that in to get, if we were offering an incentive or any type of credit for it. So that brings us to excellence now. When you are opening the door to hear students' voices, and Tammy has talked about it from the aspect of student-led conferences where we are presenting data that we were just talking about to students. But sometimes we also need to open the door for student voice to hear how students' experiences are in our schools. We don't need to wait until our report card surveys come out to start hearing the students' voices. That should be an ongoing process. And students being seen, heard, and loved is something that has to happen for them to feel like they belong on your campus, that they're important, and you should want to hear that. So it opens the door for them to share so that we can direct them sometimes towards excellence. Sometimes they may have low opinions of themselves, or they may have low opinions about their abilities, but if we never hear their thought process, if we never hear their voices, we don't know that. Or they could be sharing excellence with us from their lens, what they consider to be excellent things going on in their lives. And we heard two very dynamic examples yesterday in one of our sessions where the facilitator was talking about conducting 1 minute or 5 minute meetings with students in her building. And she talked about a student who was a star athlete. He, even though he was a star quarterback, didn't feel like he was good at other things. So she talked to him about how great he was at exhibiting empathy towards people. And that was something he wasn't aware of about himself. So sometimes it opens the door for us to speak that excellence into our students and show them where their excellence, where they may have missed it. And that did a lot for his self-esteem. And the other example she gave was about a student who was a twin who was in performing well, but her twin was exiting the exceptional children's program. And she was excited that for the first time, her and her sister or twin would be in the same reading group. So that student voice, opening that opportunity for student voice, allows us to be able to either hear excellence in our children or direct them towards the excellence that they are.
And that's for sure. I loved that example. Both examples were amazing, but I especially loved that example that she gave about the young lady whose twin was coming out, because that I think kind of gave Dr. Mary a different idea about what I can get from these conferences with my kids. Because when you ask a student a question about what you're excited about that's happening in school, and you're expecting them to tell you something, a small child, to say, I'm excited about the new canopy we have on the playground. And what your child comes back to you with is, I'm excited that my sister is now going to be able to be in the same reading group with me because she's no longer going to be in an EC student. It was just so to me rewarding to hear. So I know to her that was like, oh, a moment of pride, because children do surprise you with what they say. And I thought that was pretty powerful too. And what I'll do is I'll just transition on into our A aspect of our framework, which is accountability. And I just ask, like, what better way to hold students accountable if I know I'm going to have to explain my behavior, my grades, my classroom participation to my parents in front of my teacher. I'm a little more apt to do what I'm expected to do. Or if we talk about it from the aspect of conferencing with every child, like Dr. Mary does with the 1 minute meetings, I'm a little more likely to be on point if I know my principal's coming to have a conference with me. So the accountability piece, I guess, sort of speaks for itself. But I can just say that when I led in my room, student-led conferences were a part of that culture. And I personally kept a remembrance journal because you want the children to be able to have a conversation. And as you're teaching, because this is a part of the culture in your room, as you're teaching them about how they're going to be presenting their data, yes, they have to have data notebooks so that you've explained to them what this data means and they understand what their goals are and they understand if they've exceeded the goals or how close they are to meeting the goals and what we're doing about that. All those things are important, but it's also important for parents to understand if a child isn't meeting the goal, why? And if one of the factors that's prohibiting them or impeding them from meeting goals is behavior, then you have to make sure that that's something that's addressed in a respectful way. And that log was something that they kept, like you had to go log your own inappropriate behavior. I don't have time to do that because I'm teaching in this classroom. So they even knew signals. I didn't have to say anything. I just pointed over there. Okay, Jeremy, and he knew what he was doing. And so he went over there and he logged it, and they knew the time and date stamped it. So this can happen. And I had first grade at that time. So you can teach the children to be accountable for their academics through data notebooking, but you can also teach them to be accountable for their actions and class participation or not through various means. But like I said, I use a remembrance journal that we kept on the counter, and it was, everybody had their own. So it wasn't like anybody was checking out, oh, let me see what Tammy did. Nope, you had your number and you knew what to do when you went to your journal. So when you presented that to your parents, again, you're presenting Tammy's data.
I love that, Tammy. And the only thing that I'll add, one of the things that we do with MTSS, this is the accountability piece that you talked about, and students tracking things is a great way for them also to learn lessons about how when you have certain habits, this is the result that it produces. So when we are looking at attendance, we show students, see, when you're absent this many days, there's a correlation to what your grades are because you've missed instruction, you've missed work, and now you're behind. So just making sure they understand that data analysis piece to that accountability piece. The other thing that we look at too is how much time they may spend on cell phones or how much time they spend watching TV is a thing that we direct them to do. If their grades are a certain way, for them to understand, you've got to develop some better habits. So there's a lot involved in that accountability piece with making sure they know how to track their own data in multiple ways, like we talked about. So that moves us over to literacy. And when we connect students' voices to writing, and we allow them to express their opinions on their topics of interest, engagement for students go through the roof. So this is giving them student choice, is giving them voice, with them being allowed to express themselves. But it also lets you know, as Tammy talked about her passion, the journal, she talked of the Remembrance Journal. This lets you know what your students are passionate about. When you know what your students are passionate about or what they have strong feelings around, this will also help you tap into that for other projects for your class that you may come up with, or other things that you may want to direct them towards instructionally when you're given different assignments for your class. In our Building Relationships with Books program, one of the things that we have teachers do with writing when they're trying to build those relationships is that students will journal, but the teacher also journals back, because that's how you build a relationship with your students, through writing. So connecting that literacy piece to writing is a great way to make sure that you're hearing your students' voices and then learning about what they're passionate about, but them also learning some things about you if you're incorporating that journaling piece back and forth.
Yeah, I love the journal idea, and it's I think a strong tool to be able to use in the classroom, whether it's a daily back and forth like you're talking about, or if you set it up in a center, and the conversation center, there was a time that they could write and I could write back to them. So I think it does build that strong literacy piece that, of course, that we are always trying to promote. And finally, we'll move into our leadership. And when we have student led conferences, we are building leaders through student agency by giving them voice, not just about what they want, but also voice to account for and to explain their schooling. I love student led conferences because the kids were empowered. And then I felt, as I said, empowered because when you see your children doing that, whether you're the teacher or the parent, it just brings about a sense of pride that they understand why they're at school. And that is a piece that's missing often because in some classrooms that understanding isn't there. And that's why they goof off most of the time, and teachers struggle to keep them engaged. So student-led conferences is definitely a leadership tool, but I'll caution you not to be a Pharisee with student-led conferences too, because you should not use this time of conferencing to humiliate the child or the parent by what else do you need to tell them? Oh, and what else do you need to tell them? You need to make sure that you've taught them how to be forthright and to come with it, because your culture is such that we just speak the truth. This is what happened, and if it wasn't so great this time, maybe it'll be better next time. Just that sense of hope that there's always tomorrow. But when you take them into the conference and you don't offer that respect that we were talking about before, but you are beating them down even in the student-led conference, that's not the point of that time together. And for me, like, one of the things that I think was important is I started with 3 positives. That I started the conference, I told you that before, and I started with 3 positives. And one of the positives was always how much I loved having Tammy in my class. And I know somebody watching is saying, I'm not going to lie and say I love having Tammy in my class. And you don't have to. You can say something different. You could say, having Tammy in my class this year has certainly grown me as a teacher. There's a message there probably, but it is not disrespectful to the parents. Or you can even say, Tammy is such an amazing student. You know, we had to come together around how we work together in the classroom. She had to learn me, I had to learn her. But something positive, 3 positive things that I had to find to say about every single child, because you want parents to understand, I love this child too. I want the same thing you want. And when you do that, you have a commitment from parents like you wouldn't believe. So honestly, student-led conferences can be game-changing for your class and for your school.
Most definitely, Tammy. And I think ultimately what we want for our students, with having them have student voice, having them to be a part of student-led conferences, we want them to become the leaders of their own lives. So with student voice, we're able to hear their perspectives, we're able to hear what they're passionate about, we're able to learn about them so that we can pour into them. And ultimately, that's what we all want, like you said, to be on that same page with parents and partnering with our parents to really develop our students into the excellence that we know that they all are. So we hope that you have gathered something from what we've given you this morning on student voice in the REALL Academy. We hope that you can use these strategies to build your scholars and to build your students. We will be joining Principal Kafele later because we'll have to go back and watch the replay, but please join Principal Kafele on his page. I know Principal Hurt told us he's here at the conference too. that he was recording this morning, or he may go live this morning. So we'll join him later as well.
And shout out to Principal Hurt for a phenomenal session yesterday, as well as to Dr. Chika Akua and Coach Carlos Johnson, Principal James Presley. We got a strong lineup of family here. So we're really excited to be amongst these amazing educators.
Most
Dr.
definitely.
Melissa Chester is going to be teaching us on flavor this morning. So we're looking forward to that too.
Most definitely. And Dr. Marcus Jackson and
yes,
Dr. Mary, who we referenced earlier, all phenomenal sessions. This has been a phenomenal conference. So join us back here on Saturday at 10 a.m., starting with Principal Sean Hurt, Create and Educate at 10:30. Principal Kafele on Sunday. I mean, not on Sundays, on Saturdays, right after us at 10:55, and Unlock the Middle, which I know that I saw Dean's fishing pictures, so I think they may be on a hiatus right now until he comes back from his vitamin. I put vitamin C, SEA on his profile picture, so they may be back Sundays on Unlock the Middle soon. So we're looking forward to meeting up with Josh on Sunday too. We'll be at the airport at the same time. So have a great rest of your Saturday, everyone. Thank you for joining us.
Happy Saturday.